Live.
Well, hey.
Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. So we have Dr. Jen in the house today. Hi, Dr. Jen. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Hope everyone's well.
I'm excited for today's call. You guys, we're going to get started here in just a second. Dr. Jen, in a second, I'm going to have you give a little bit of your background. But first, we're going to read a disclaimer. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have read or received from this content. So now that we have the boring stuff out of the way, Dr. Jen, why don't you give us a little bit of your background for those just checking in and hearing you speak for the first time?
Sure. My name's Dr. Jen Furcht. I am a bioenergy chiropractor, along with other things in realms of the quantum physics world, nutrition, and all the good stuff around our realm of helping the body in a lot of different ways through the energy field, mental, emotional, subconscious ways of healing and becoming this wellness idea of yourself. I've been in private practice for over 20 years, if you can believe that, which is crazy. But I've also helped people all around the world, really getting to that core place of who they are and really having a feeling through themselves as to, how to really walk this life in a very different way. And I brought a lot of that information in by traveling all over the world. I've been, to India and Egypt and Machu Picchu and Chile and Easter Island and all these different areas for the main purpose of just going and seeing, how other cultures work, how healing works in all different types of levels and areas and dimensions. And I brought that in to helping people. I've written a couple books around it, really just, how the truth of our body is so that we can live better in prosperity, in wealth, of wellness. And that's like a, short synopsis, but I like to look at all the areas, ancient to present, to really bring forward, the truth of who we are.
Yes, and that's one of the things that I love about you is your knowledge, and you're constantly gaining knowledge to help people. So what are we going to be talking about today? A little bit. I'm excited about today's call. We're going to be we're going to be talking about, maybe we could be stopping our body from healing itself. What does that look like? How does that happen?
So I think the very first place that I like to begin is that if we really had a bigger picture, like an idea of not only who we are, but how our body responds, how we function, what really is running our show, of then how we feel. We have this idea of symptoms in our body. And a lot of times, because we don't know all the layers on some level as to who we are, we look to a different direction to try to heal something that we're going through, or, it's the symptomatology. So I like to present everybody with this magnificent idea, of how powerful you actually are. So, we walk through life and we do our thing and we believe that we're just this matter or this physical source of something. And we are, yet there's this bigger idea of the different aspects that we can actually become in tune to or become aware of, to then maybe walk a little bit different in our world. Because if we think about the fact that we wake up and we don't really know how it functions at all, yet we breathe it every single day, like we breathe this, mass amount of consciousness every single day, and we only use like a very little bit of it. So if we became aware of how powerful we are, the bigger picture of how our body functions, then we could pick up different things, in our lifetime, like, CBD and such, which we'll get into, that will actually help accelerate this natural force of who we are, this natural idea of who we are. And so sometimes we just need to have an awareness of it. For example, and I'm just going to kind of throw some of these things out there. It's nothing you really have to like connect to or understand, but I'm just giving you this bigger picture, the big picture of who you are. So you have these 12 dimensions of consciousness that you are. We only use about 2. So if we just had an awareness that we had all these layers of knowing within our body, how different would we function? If we understood that, we also have this emotional body, right? Just so that we have an idea to sense ourselves, that polarity, hot, cold, good, bad, that idea versus judging ourselves and putting ourselves into a smaller world. How would we walk different? If we knew we had this mentality, this mental body, which we actually have, that allows us to choose all the time versus being led towards a choice that might not be for our best health, how big would we be? How powerful would we be? This is, we're moving into the creativity that the truth is we are energy and we are an energetic field. And so when we're talking about the key to health that a lot of people don't even really understand is that we have this biofield around us. Every single living thing has a biofield around them that is actually giving the information to the physical self, this matter on the inside. So we're an extension of that as to how to respond because we're just a response unit. So if that information that we might not even be aware of, that is this field around us, is giving our body information to think a particular way, to create chemistry in a different way. To think about chemistry, our cortisol, putting us into this sympathetic mode, this fight or flight, where, we're typically then in fear, and then in that we can't heal. So if we don't even know this field exists, then there's ways to heighten the field, and there's ways that the field collapses, which we'll get into. Then how could we truly have a bigger picture idea as to what to do for self that would help us create this frequency and this vibration to live in a life of health? And so that is actually the key, because this biofield around us is 80% of our immune system. Think about that for a moment.
Wow, that's
So when that system collapses, and there's a lot of ways it collapses, and unfortunately it's intentional and by design, but when that system collapses, we don't have the response unit to actually have an immune system to fight for us, to give us good information, to help, our digestive system process, to allow our heart to function correctly, to allow the blood flow to move as it should through arterial walls, to help our brain not be inflamed, to help the nervous system. So when we're talking about the biofield, we're talking about what brings it up and what collapses it. And so to think about that, we have to think about what gets us back to nature, what allows the system to recognize our naturality versus something that's modified. So our biofield becomes a recognition to our DNA, and that those two things together is the key. But to make it, a little bit more simple, if we just began to recognize that we have this field around us, we are energy, that energy system talks to our endocannabinoid system, which talks to our nervous system, which talks to our physical chemistry in the body, our physicality. If we just had that idea maybe of how powerful then we are, we're much bigger than just this physical self, and we can begin to walk as that idea, but then also from a healing perspective, so we respond in health versus disease. So we're not actually meant to be, sick or healthy. We're actually meant to respond to what the environment of our biofield is telling our body. So at the very least, if we started understanding some of these different levels of who we are, we might begin to make different choices on a consistent basis as to what we get to do to help maintain the field, so to speak. And if we go back into the Tesla area, arena, when he used energy frequency to create, that's what because he knew what ran the body. When you go to, the doctor and they put the EKG or the EEG, they're testing the field, right? They're testing the pulse of you. When that pulse goes away, you leave, you leave this planet, right? It's all about the frequency, the vibration, the accumulation of this idea around the fact that you are this biofield, and that is the key to your health. And the acknowledgement of that to begin with is where we get to start, especially when we're dealing with, adding. For example, there's a lot of things we can add, but for example, the hemp plant, the most powerful energetic plant that gets to go into your body, activate what's already to be there so that it gets to come up to its nature to allow your field to express its power. When our field is collapsed, it's very easy for us to take in an idea that's not for our highest good. It's very easy for us to get indoctrinated into things. It's very easy for us not to have power and grounding and a idea of our health or even our wealth, right? It's all frequency. Everything is frequency. Everything's made of energy. It might look like it's, not it might look like it's like the hardest measure of matter, but in reality that matter is just collapsed from the high frequency of energy in which you are.
That's amazing, Dr. Jen. I love how you put that all together. So what would be something that we could be aware of? I've heard it said that if you knew the impact of a negative thought, you would never think a negative thought ever again. So I'm sure negative thoughts can collapse that field.
It can consistent negative thoughts. And it's interesting that you brought that up, because the word that I would throw in there is authenticity. If you're authentic about how you feel, and it's something you allow your body to come into, hence our emotional body. We're supposed to have the negativity and the positivity, so to speak. We're supposed to have the anger at times. We're supposed to have the joy. All is to be. If I'm trying to be happy all the time and inside there's no happiness, my field collapses either way, even though I'm really being positive, to this essence of, what I don't really feel that authentic feeling about. So I would say authenticity keeps your field strong. So if it is what it is, allow yourself to have it, but move through it. Don't store it. The storage of it creates the collapse. So that's a part of our emotional body that we get to have an understanding of. Have what you have, allow it to move. That's why we use our breath, but that's also why we move into, again, the key word, the authenticity, to keep our field strong. So yes, we don't want to be chronic negative, ideas of who we are, but the only reason why we would even have that is because our field is collapsed and we don't know how powerful and creative and strong that we are. We've left the heart, and not like the Hallmark heart,
Right.
just trying to do things to keep people happy, and people are like, but I'm doing it out of love, and I'm like, yeah, but you don't really want to do that. You feel like you should. So those shoulds are collapsing because it's not authentic driven, cycle of love, which is actually that field. But we're talking about, more of the trueness of love. And other things, that collapse our field. I mean, we could kind of look all around us. And I caution in saying all of it, because then people feel a little defeated, like, what do I do? Because, we have the air above us. It's, there's the chemicals that are coming in, and that our body doesn't know that nature. So it has to react. All the chemicals in our world, they're creating distractions around our cell receptors. So nutrition can't come in and toxins can't go out. It's making us more modified, so to speak. So
Like
we
the
have the
camera.
air above us. We have the
Yeah.
toxicity of the water. We have, the cosmetics we put on our body. We have, unfortunately, our genetically modified foods and the virals that are in them, and we're over medicated, and we're under an idea. We're under an idea of who we are. Like all of these things, we brush our teeth with fluoride. It's a neurotoxin. All of these things are making us believe that we're less than we are because it's collapsing the field. And it's making that inner intuition, that pineal gland that's to be crystalline, which the CBD that also helps remove the well, we'll say like the blocking of the pineal. That there's been a lot of studies around that the CBD helps actually open that up to allow the biofield to become strong, to be in that strength of our naturality. So there's all these things that we get to look at, but it's the awareness of that, so that we get to be connected, grounded, feel and start sensing this field around you, above you, below you, in front of you, behind you, all around you, and begin to walk as this nature that you truly are. And then you can just simply ask, how do I make it stronger? What do you think depletes it? Because whatever depletes it is where your symptomatology comes from. Versus trying to ask, how do I heal my migraine? How do I get out of, an insulin resistant? How do I, this inflammation here, inflammation in the back? It seems like there would be a black and white answer to that, but it's really how the energy is flowing through the body.
Right. I mean, we store our emotions in
Correct.
our body. So if it's something that happened years ago and your body stores it, that can have long-term effects, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Our mind, the subconscious part of our mind. So when we went through, the strength of the biofield feeds the endocannabinoid, which feeds the nervous system. That nervous system has the conscious and subconscious part. So that thing that happened in the past is in the subconscious, which is feeding 90% of how our body is functioning. So think about that. Whatever happened when you were 3 or 4 or 5, you get an idea about an emotion. You get an idea about a person, and your mind creates this cycle that allows your body, or creates your body, to react in stress, and it holds that. And then there's different ways to release that. But sometimes just the idea of knowing that, and you understanding that you're bigger than that, and you're not just that experience alone, will create a new energy. Because a lot of times we don't know why we feel the way we feel. We work on the stuff that we know about, right? We work on the divorce, we work on, the death, we work on these massive things that happen.
Right.
And they're usually not massive. They're usually just, those things we've dealt with, like I said, but the other things they're just stored ideas, thoughts, energy in the muscle, in the nervous system, in our way of being. The one reason why we don't get on a video, the one reason why we don't, get out on media and speak our truth. We have these ideas about ourselves that come from way back when, we get these symptoms because we have a cycle of a thought in the mind that creates a chemistry. This chemistry creates a symptom. So we just need to shake it up a little, move it around. Is what I say.
I love that. Hey, guys, if you have any questions for Dr. Jen, drop below. I know Kimmy's watching the chat, so we want to make sure we don't miss anything.
Sarah, we can barely hear you.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me, Dr. Jen?
I can.
Okay.
It's light, but I can hear it. Yeah, it's a little
I have
light.
my volume all the way up. I'm not sure what's going on. But I've had experiences, Dr. Jen, where you're in an environment and the energy is really bad, where it has actually made me physically sick, and I'm like, I gotta leave. I gotta get out of here, just because the energy is so bad. So people don't realize the effect of that and what it can do to us, I don't think.
Well,
The
think about
60%
this.
of the immune system's in there is, wow.
Right. So that collapsed your biofield and your immune system will respond to that, which is why people will get sick when they're around other people that are sick. You know, it's not like they're transferring necessarily like a virus. It's because they're getting weaker around a particular frequency or around an energy that is allowing their body then to administer what's already lying within, right? So think about this, for example. When you hear birds chirping outside, right?
Mhm.
Your system, your neurology goes into an expanded biofield because subconsciously your body knows that there's no fear around you. When birds are chirping, all is good. There's no earthquake coming, you know, you're in a safe space. When you hear the dog barking and this happens and your nervous system automatically pulls back and it's like, okay, now I'm in fight or flight. And our mind is constantly thinking that the dog is barking versus the birds are chirping. But literally, if we hear the birds chirping, our body will actually go into a vagal healing mode to say, it's all good. You have high energy frequency. You don't have, any danger around you. I remember when I was in Indonesia, it was right before that huge tsunami that took out everybody. And I remember telling Jamie in the group, I was like, it's too silent. Like nothing's chirping, nothing, we're in Bali, everything chirps.
Yeah.
And I was like, something is going to happen. And we went down to the water and the water was going in the opposite way. And I'm like, as a diver, I was like, this is not normal. Like the frequency is changing. Something's going to happen in that, I think it was, I don't know, within a 6-hour period, that tsunami hit and took out that area of Indonesia. But you could feel it. They all knew. And I think that's another interesting thing about our biofield. It already knows before we know.
Yes, that's why
It's already in there before.
Right?
So we got to keep our field strong with things that are more natural, with CBD, with good water, with, as close to nature of food that we can get, minerals, things that create us. We're crystalline. We are these things of high vibration. We're made of it. That's what our DNA is made of. And so if we want to think about maybe what might impede us, what are you doing every single day that might have a little bit of that modification in it that's giving your body information to react or to collapse? It might be a person, to your point. It might be something you're putting on your body. It might be something you're drinking, might be something you're eating. It might be your environment, might be the air that you're breathing. It might be radiation from well, we're here, computer, but I can't tell you how many people, with the Apple watches and all that, and you go through the muscle tests that I do every single day, and you can't get their body to read because it's blocking their heart energy, it's blocking the neurology, all these things. Unfortunately, like they're intentional input into our body because we're so powerful. If we were really awake to what is, into that intuition and all was clean and clear, there'd be absolutely nothing you couldn't do. You would be able to manifest, create, have an understanding, an idea about all things. So those are things. Just have that idea of you, how powerful you are. And the key is that you are actually this biofield that is kind of running your physical body. And just take it in and see what happens.
Yes, this has been an incredible call, Dr. Jen. I actually have have a question that came through, and I think it's so perfect for you because obviously the humans have the ECS system, but animals do as well, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Living things. Living
okay.
things.
So I got a question. Somebody's dog has, excuse me if I don't say this correct, but laryngeal paralysis, which affects both her throat and breathing, and her hind end. She has 2 torn ACLs and is weak in the knees. Is there something that could be done? And I love this question because you have such a sweet fur baby. Zach, he gets acupuncture. He's a special little guy. So it's like this question was perfect for you.
Yeah, I mean, my dog was diagnosed with a sarcoma. You know, a little different than the situation that you're bringing, but paralysis is, you know, we're talking about interference in the nervous system and in the field. And you know, Zach gets a lot of good things even before this, but from the energetic system that I have that kind of I don't want to use the word that evaluates people. It was more from pesticides actually that he was taking in. And then there was some reactions going on in his body. My point in saying that is like almost overnight, you know, he ended up having this huge tumor, which didn't make any sense to me because the amount of things that we do for his field and his body and the whole realm. But we started doing different levels of CBD. We started doing different levels of bone broth, terahertz energy, of course, the acupuncture, B12, all these things. I was also doing some energy frequencies on him from a system. So, you know, to kind of sum it up, I went from the so-called outside in people go, you know, not in an environmental way, but as far as I strengthened his biofield is, you know, what really was the idea that began to allow him to heal. And so you know, we have a vet that comes to the house and she's kind of like, what are you doing? Because this tumor that doesn't normally shrink is shrinking. And it, you know, it's been an interesting process. But the number one thing I did is daily work on his biofield. And there's like more conversation to that. But then also it was, you know, what are we doing internally to help what's being worked on through the field actually ignite the energy on the inside. So he's like, you know, he's back to himself. He's walking normal. You know, he's playing normal, you know, all of these things. And, you know, to me, it was just, I would say a message to really hone into how important it is to consistently work on the biofield, the water in the body. We're mostly water. Think about the energy of water, how water flows. When that gets stuck, things begin to build up. Our virus, our bacterial, our fungal, anything that's been trapped in the body. Of course, we could go to the emotional, mental level too as well. But, you know, hence in the beginning when I was saying, like, think about the big picture of who you are and who living beings are, including our animals, plants, all that. If we know the idea of that bigness, so to speak, how might we go about it different when we're trying to get our bodies back to that neutrality, that natural state? And we can always use other things. Of course, medicine has its place, and we always go down that line, and it's not like a, you know, a push away of any of that. We use it when we need it, but we also go into it knowing what we know so that we don't get caught in it. You know, we don't get caught in the drug. We don't get caught in that continuation. We do what we need to do, and then we observe again because we have an understanding that that's not really our neutrality. But sometimes we need it, and that's okay. But it's just your idea going in. I don't know if that's helpful, but you know, there's that would be its own like conversation. But the biofield is feeding the physical.
Right. I know how much I love my dogs. I know how much you love Zach. So
yeah,
I hate to see any suffering. Do you do treatments on I know you do treatments on Zach, but can somebody book an appointment for their animal for you to do treatment on? Okay.
Yeah, I just had a patient, and she brought her dog in, and it had a huge tumor on the side, that they wanted to do all this stuff. And like I said, I'm not denying any of that stuff, but in about a week and a half period from the energy system that I run them through, because it shows, but it also clears the mass I hate to say it was, I don't hate to say, but it seems like that's not true, but it was gone. It's still gone.
Wow.
Different than my dog. My dog's mass is not gone, but it's smaller. But you know, and we added a little bit of other kind of supplementation, but we worked on the biofield, and we also, well, I won't go into something else, but yes, we worked on the biofield. Yes.
Okay, amazing, you guys. Dr. Jen, today's call was incredible. Thank you so much. I'm sorry my sound was a little bit off, you guys. I'll have to look into that. But if you want to make an appointment with Dr. Jen, how do they do that? How do they reach you?
Just I guess, you know, go to my email at this moment.
What is your email? We'll drop it.
Dr. spelled out Jen, Jen, at protonmail.
Okay, perfect. So if any of you want to make an appointment, Dr. Jen's an incredible energy worker, and the future medicine is going to be energy medicine, is it not, Dr. Jen?
Yeah, it's really already there. It's just it has been suppressed from us. You know, we're usually, you know, 15 years ahead of the curve. And of course, so all the things that we use now are becoming more mainstream. And of course, you know, we laugh, my partner and I, we laugh. We're like, yeah, we've had that for, you know, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
But that is because when you work on the biofield, everything else in between gets to go back to nature. When you go back to nature, the things that we're suffering from decrease on a mind, body level, on an emotional body level, and then of course on a chemical level. I mean, your blood tests will change. I mean, you'll see it in the system. So you know, it's where we need to go, and it's how we get to understand our body and the power of our body. That's how powerful we are. So once we start understanding this notion of that frequency and that we're made of energy, and that's what everything else is too, as well, including our choice and how we get to choose for our life experience, we get to have a whole new way of living our life, because we're just here to experience. We are the purpose already. There's nothing we actually have to like go out and find. We just need to understand who we are really and how we function. So
I love that. Thank you for today's call. Again, that's Dr. Jen at protonmail.com. I'll put that down in the comments, and be on the lookout, you guys, for our next call. Be announcing that soon. Thank you, Dr. Jen. I appreciate it. Everybody have a great weekend.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.